Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 15th episode of Disability Discrimination Banned Starting Now. I am your host, Lindsay, and today we are rejoined by one of my previous guests, Sam Shusko, who joined us as my very first interviewee of the podcast. Now, before Sam joins the show, we are reaching near the end of season 1. Now, I know it's very sad that I'll be doing a season finale, but I want to have a lot of the episodes planned out for season 2. And so we are at episode 15, and including this one, my season finale episode will be episode 20. Now, I filmed our season finale episode this past Tuesday, June 20th, and I am very excited for all of you to hear the guest that I had on. And more about the finale episode being posted will be updated soon. And so all of you can go and listen to this person that I was very, very fortunate to get on the podcast. I was the most nervous interviewing him to interview, but I can tell you guys he was one of the most funnest people to talk to. And I hope to have them on again. I said that country style again in the future of the podcast. Now that Sam is joining the show, we are going to talk about 10 myths surrounding people who have disabilities or limitations. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Hi, Lindsay. Thanks again for having me. I'm so glad to be back on here. I very much enjoyed our last episode, so I very much appreciate you asking me to come back.
I am very, very happy you were able to come back. So this episode format, guys, will be a little different because I'll be reading the myths surrounding disabilities, and then Sam and I will be commentating on what we believe about it, because of course it is myths. And to quote where I'm getting the information from, I got this from Mark Wynn's consulting website. So if Mark Wynn's company listens to this podcast episode, thank you for putting this information on your website. So, Sam, this is the first one.
All right.
A person's disability defines who they are as a individual. I'm gonna first comment on that because when I read it, that's the one I got most fired up about it.
Okay.
You guys have heard me say in the last 15 episodes that just because we have disabilities. It doesn't define us, for goodness sakes. I mean, we are more than capable to do whatever we put our mind to. And if you guys really believe it, you are the dumbest people in the world. I am sorry for saying that, but in this podcast, I am going to be saying how I truly feel about it. Sam?
Yeah, no, I agree. Someone, a person's disability it doesn't define who I am. I don't let my learning difference define me. Granted, I definitely, sometimes I struggle because of it, but I find ways to overcome those challenges, and I have still been able to be successful with my learning difference. So, I would just encourage you to not put a label, to not use that as a label for someone, because they are, people with any kind of disability are just as capable of doing things as someone without it. So I would, so I think my food for thought for this one is I would encourage us to not put labels on someone just because of something that they have no control over.
Yes. So the second one is I agree with everything you're saying, Sam. I feel like with you and I and me and the season finale guests that we're having or I'm having, we share the same terminology, if that makes sense. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yes, that makes sense. Absolutely, 100%.
And so, just in case there are people listening that do not understand what I mean by terminology, I'm saying the definition, in my view, of terminology is we have the same beliefs. Like you've heard me say multiple times in this podcast, I want people who suffer from disabilities or limitations to know that they are not in this battle alone, basically, because you probably could call it a battle, Sam, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, yeah, because I feel like, sometimes, yeah, honestly, yeah. Because sometimes people don't always, I'm trying to think of the best way of saying it, but yeah, you are right. Yeah. Because people, not everyone, at least in my experience, sometimes people without learning differences, they don't really know what it's like for someone with a learning difference. And I don't know if they mean to be judgmental or closed-minded, but I think a lot of it comes from being uneducated about the facts about people with learning differences. And so I think when people don't know something, we just tend to assume things. And I also has to think it comes with the way that we're brought up too.
Yeah, and people can learn from people with disabilities.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
And
I think we can all learn from each other, not just when it comes to disabilities, but I think we can all learn from each other every day.
yeah, and real quick, people have heard me say, talk about the fact I have cerebral palsy in constant episodes. But like for me personally, there are times where I'll get like jealous of you, jealous of my parents, jealous of everyone that doesn't have cerebral palsy because they have full functioning both sides. Like they don't have paralysis. But in the same point, I also know that I have cerebral palsy for a reason and I have a voice for a reason. And I think my reason to have it is to prove people wrong and speak up and ask people who are listening to this podcast to listen.
Oh, I agree very much so. And Lindsay, I think you and I are a perfect example of how people with learning differences can be successful. I mean, hey, you and I both graduated. You were was it magna cum laude or summa cum laude?
Magnum cum laude.
Magna cum laude. And, you've been pretty successful, I would say, did very well in school. And I also have my bachelor's degree, and I'm currently working towards my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. For those of you who saw my last episode that I was in, you probably remember that. So I think, Lindsay, what you said was very well said, and I couldn't agree with you more.
I feel like at times I read your minds on what you're saying, on
I
what
think
you're thinking.
I think we both read each other's minds, just that good of a friendship. We just, we just know each other that well.
Okay, so number two, people with disabilities are always sick and in constant pain.
I would say that is definitely not true. And I'm going to kind of use a similar example that Dr. Marsden used on her episode when she appeared. If someone who would if someone were to say that to me again, I'm going to kind of use Dr. Marsden's example, so I want to give her credit for this. I would probably also, more want to ask them why they seem to think that way. Why do you think that people with disabilities are always sick and in constant pain? Because that's, I can tell you, I have ADHD, but I wouldn't say where does sickness come into play? Like, I don't even know if people are using the sickness in the right context. So, like I said, I would just more want to ask someone why they think that way, and then just, simply just, tell them that, educate them on how that's not true. I mean, because it's not. I mean, you know that, Lindsay. We're not. I would say we're not. We're pretty happy, and we're not sick and in pain all the time. So I'd be curious about where that mindset came from.
And I agree with that. That's kind of my point too. But another question I would ask them is how much education have you had?
That's also a good question to ask too. And I'm going to bring, and I hope you don't mind, I'm going to bring therapy in this a little bit. If I had a client who kind of came in and was like that, I'm not here to judge them for that. But and that's why I was saying that, that's why I would want to just ask them to kind of really understand where their thought process is coming from too. Because because I can tell you that myth is just not true. And so, yeah, I would just want to, like I said, I know it sound like a broken record, but I would just want to question, just kind of get more information about why they think that way. Because that's actually, when you were sending me these, Lindsay, I'd actually not heard about that myth before.
I honestly had never looked up any myths until yesterday because I knew there was a possibility we would be discriminated against, but I didn't know that there were myths surrounding
Mhm.
disabilities.
I mean, I was aware of some, but some of the ones that you sent me, I was like, oh, I never heard that one before. But that's why, I'm happy that we're doing something like this where we can just, simply, I think educating people about this is really the way to go. Is because it's like I said earlier, I think a lot of it comes from people just simply, there's a lack of knowledge about people with learning differences. And so I think just educating is the way to go.
But I also going back to the people are people with disabilities are always sick and in constant pain with what you said about what Dr. Marsden said. I would also ask them, like, did anyone in your family educate you And if y'all talked about disabilities, what were they saying?
Yeah, that's a good point too. Because when I was growing up, my parents always taught me, and my two siblings, my two brothers, to just be, to just not judge people for anything, to just, to just not, to accept people for who they are. So I also think a lot of how people are brought up does play a role too in people's mindset and thinking.
And if there are parents that have younger children, um, I that are listening to this episode, I encourage you to just sit down and have a conversation with them. Of
Mhm,
course, if they're young, you'll have to slowly but surely have that conversation. Because, like a 2 year old or a 5 year old will probably not really understand what you're saying.
mhm.
And I just think the sooner you start this conversation, if you don't have a person that suffers from a disability in your family, the better educated and the better they would have the understanding when they do see a disability.
I agree 100%. And something that I always even tell people too is, I'll tell like my friends, if you have, I'm pretty open, with people I know about my learning difference. And so I'm like, if you ever have any questions about my learning difference, or if there's anything you want to know about something I'm struggling with, just ask me. I'd much rather you ask me and I can answer it for you rather than,
You
just make
you
assumptions.
assuming you
Yeah. Like,
assuming.
yeah, and yeah, so that's why I tell people, I'm like, just if there's something about it that you want to know, that you're curious about, just ask me. I'm happy to, answer any questions you may have.
And everyone listening is invited to contact one of us.
Absolutely.
And Sam, if you're okay with it, I'm gonna share your social media
Hmm.
profile so they can contact you directly if it's a question for you.
Hmm. And I'm also happy to give out like my email address too.
Okay. So this one is a little confusing to me. Hopefully you understand it a little better. My gosh, my dog is being crazy right now. He's playing. I have my iPad where I have the questions on
Uh-huh.
like my TV trays, and
Hmm.
he's pushing his ball uh
Oh, that's cute.
under. And it's like, Astro. Of course, no one ever. Wait, no, don't leave. You're gonna make an appearance. Sorry, y'all.
That's what happens when you have a dog, y'all.
This is the dog mascot of Disability Discrimination Band starting now. And
I love
if everyone wants to see a picture of Astro, then please watch this video on YouTube because then you'll be able to see him. But I know he's trying to find his ball right now, so
that.
gonna say sayonara.
Bye, Astro. Uncle Sam will see you later.
Oh, I love him. Okay, sorry we got off topic a little bit. Um, but uh people with disabilities are brave, courageous, and inspirational for living with their disabilities.
Let's see. I guess I haven't heard this one either. Because I saw this, I was like, what does that mean? But
Well, yes, I'll try and get started. If someone here listening understands the myth, if you don't mind like contacting me to help explain it a little better, I would greatly appreciate it. I think Sam and I both would. But
Yes, please, definitely.
I think what it means is it's really dependent on the disability. I
I
think
think so,
that's
yeah.
more of a case by case. I mean, yes, some are like you and I are brave, are inspirational, and kick butt dealing with our disability. But some people don't feel that way because
And I think
they,
maybe, go
sorry,
ahead.
give me a sec. Because some people with disabilities feel ashamed of having them. They feel ashamed. And unfortunately, it sometimes they don't feel brave. They don't feel like they're inspirational, and they don't feel like they're courageous because they might be feeling like they're a burden. And that makes me very, very sad to say. But just because Sam and I are calling, like, speaking about this, some people don't.
Right, yes, definitely. There are people that are, they kind of, maybe, and that could, they don't really want to talk about it, maybe because it's for the exact reasons that you were saying. They're ashamed. They may have been told they don't have the best support system. They may, like I said, they may have been told that they, maybe are worthless, or it's really unfortunate because, when you have people that just tell people, things like that, all it really does is just bring them down, and it really doesn't do anything to boost their confidence.
And if they don't have people that are boosting their confidence, then they're gonna be ashamed
Exactly. Yeah.
of
So
having.
having a good support system definitely helps for sure.
And if anyone with the disability that is listening, Sam and I are so proud of you. We know that it's not easy dealing with some disabilities. Well, all disabilities are probably not easy to deal with, but I am very proud of you. I applaud you, and I encourage you to not listen to what your support system or system is saying if they're saying bad things to you, because you are enough. And there are going to be people in this world that will want to learn from you. So don't be ashamed, be proud, and prove to other people that no matter what, you can do it. Because
Exactly.
one example I want to give real quick is many people have heard of this NFL player, but JJ Watt, and he is married to Kalia Watt, and you may not notice this when you look at a picture of her, but she is legally blind in her left eye. She is legally blind, that did not let that define her, and is now a professional soccer player. I mean, if there's one, if Kalia can do it, then you can too.
Exactly. Keep preaching, Lindsay. Keep preaching.
I'm
But
sorry.
yeah, you
I'm
no, you're fine.
taking a lot of the times, but as you're talking, I think of other points to
Oh
make.
no, you're good. You're good. But no, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, just have courage. Quoting the Celine Dion song there, um, and just believe in yourself. Because you can do
You're here.
it. Yes, don't mind us. We love to sing.
I'm
Um,
sorry. I now that
no,
I
you're good.
now that I feel like very comfortable interviewing now,
Mhm.
people are gonna start seeing my other side where I'm funny, where I'm more open. But I can
Nice.
tell you guys, and Sam, I told you this before we started recording. The season finale person, I was so nervous to interview, but that's because I'm gonna just tell you what probably profession he's in. He's an athlete. And it's not he's my first, or they are my first athlete on there. And I don't get that every day. So if you notice nervousness in my voice, just bear with me in that episode.
You're doing great, Lindsay. You're doing great.
Okay. People with disabilities are special and should be treated differently. No, no,
Oh,
no, 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 no. We
I've
are,
heard that one before.
I feel like we've heard almost all of these before.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is
I'm,
probably the one that I probably heard more often.
I don't get why people who don't deal with what you and I do, Sam, or the 40 million people in America that lives with the disability, why they think we're special. Just because we have a limitation doesn't mean we can't do what you're doing. We just need a different way of going about it. Like
You really
I could not play baseball or softball just because of my right arm. I know people are gonna say, yes, you can, but I would need a special coach to come and help show me ways
hmm
on.
But hey, we all have our own set of strengths. We all may not be good at the same thing, but we all have some strengths inside us, and so I don't want us to lose sight of that because I think we all sometimes we get this mindset of, oh, we have to be good at this, or or we shouldn't be good at this, or all these things. But just know that we all have our own set of strengths. And so for anyone listening that does have a learning difference or any kind of disability, please know that you do have some strengths on you. I may not meet you, but I know there are things in this life that you are good at, and you should be proud of those.
And
And nobody's perfect.
no, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. I gotta work.
So, just be proud of who you are. I know I said this last episode too, but some things I'm just going to keep saying it. Just be proud of who you are, and don't let your learning difference define who you are.
Yes. And so disability is a personal tragedy and deserves our pity. This really makes me angry, so I'm gonna let you go first.
I would want to be like, where is that mindset coming from? Like, why is this a tragedy? I mean, granted, it's not easy having a learning difference, but I wouldn't necessarily define it as a tragedy. I mean, It's not like anyone died or anything. So I mean, so this one is definitely, I would disagree with this one for sure, because because it's not a tragedy. I mean, sometimes it's like Lindsay said, it's not that we can't do it, just sometimes we need things explained to us in a different way, and it might just take us a little longer. Hope that makes sense.
I'm gonna mirror what you just said because just because there's a limitation, I mean, I view as a tragedy as a serious event happened where a lot of
Hmm.
people were injured or
Hmm.
they sadly pass away.
That's why I
That
said it's not like anyone died or anything. That's why I said that comment.
it's not, and we don't deserve your pity. We deserve your help if we need help.
Your help and support.
And this is the one episode where all of you are going to see me fired up because there are some things that that are that are wrong, and if you're thinking that, then you need to learn the mindset to learn. Now, there are some families that are probably willing to open up, but and I'm encouraging everyone this. Next time you see someone have an issue doing something because they probably have a disability, maybe stay quiet and not make a discriminatory comment. Maybe uh go ask if they need help, or just ask them, I see you have a disability. If you feel comfortable explaining it to me, do you mind telling me what it is? Because I want to learn. If people with limitations know you're willing to learn, and you don't make a comment that's gonna make them mad, then they might be willing to open up and tell you, but don't be offended if they don't, because having a disability or a limitation is sometimes hard to deal with, and
It can be. Yeah.
they don't want to get judged for what they have.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
be open to learn, but don't get mad if the person is not willing to open up at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just takes people like Lindsay and I were pretty open, as you probably know, at this point. But, you know, but it's like she said, not everyone is going to be very open about it. And so just be respectful and just be patient with them, because, just, yeah, be patient with them, because it's not easy. It may not have always been easy for them. So, just be there for them. Ask them if there's anything that you can do to help. That's a that's something that I've learned in my counseling classes too. When it comes to clients, it's okay to ask a client, well, what can I do to best help you? So
Yeah.
that's just a good question to ask in general, especially if you're not sure. And if you don't know, that's okay. That's why you just simply ask. That's why I said, that's why I tell people, if there's anything you want to know about it, just ask me.
Yeah. So the next one is people with disabilities are dependent and always need help.
No.
No. Really no. I am the type of person where I try to be as independent as I can
Me too.
because I have the mindset of there's two things I can do. I can either make you feel bad for myself dealing with what I deal with and constantly ask you for help, or I can prove you guys wrong that with what I'm dealing with, and I've only shared a few of it so far. I can go out in the world and prove you wrong and only ask help if I'm really, really frustrated.
Yeah, that's my experience is kind of similar. I don't want to like feel bad for me. I want them to be supportive of me, but I don't want them to like think that, oh, you know what I mean? To like really like feel, I hope that makes sense of what I'm saying. Like really
Yeah.
feel bad for me. Because I want someone to know that yes, I have a learning difference, and so sometimes if I'm a little bit slow at times, or if it takes me a little bit longer, that is a contributing factor. And so I always like to kind of give some explanation, not an excuse, of course. But I'm not asking you to feel bad for me. I'm just asking you to just, and I'm not saying that we never need help. Of course we need help at times, but we don't always need help. But we definitely, we just ask that you just be there for us like anybody, and help us out if we need it. Just have your help and support.
That's very, very, very true. I think Astro's loving this episode topic because he hasn't left
Maybe he
yet.
just hears Uncle Sam. His voice.
Or he's probably looking at me like, Mom, what are you doing?
Probably too. Yeah.
Because if I'm always looking away, I'm looking at my sweet little dog.
He's so sweet.
So, so I lost my place for a second. Give me a sec. People with disabilities want to associate with each other. Are you guys really being serious right now? Like, really? You think that the only friends I want to have is people that have disabilities? It's not. We try to associate with peers that don't deal with what we do, that don't necessarily understand, you could say. But we like to associate ourselves with some people who have a disability because they understand what we're going through, even if we have two different things. I always, with particular friends, like some that aren't at, from Beacon that I met there, I like talking to people about what I deal with that understand. And some of my friends actually don't. And yes, I'm kind of in my own little shell at times, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna have friends that are willing to help, that can that don't deal with what I deal with, but they learn from me. They learn from me and they learn from Sam.
Exactly. And yeah, I have friends in my grad program that don't have learning differences. So I mean, yeah, I have a big variety of friends too, and I'm fine with that. And all my friends and my grad program, I would say for the most I would say most of them know that I have a learning difference, and none of them have judged me for it. So they're all pretty understanding about that. So that's always good.
And they probably ask questions too.
Oh yeah, they've asked me questions about it, and I've answered them. I don't have an issue with that. I'd rather them ask me questions and then know the truth rather than make assumptions. And so, and
Y'all were,
they even tell me, they're like, I don't want to just assume. They'll sometimes be like, this might seem like a dumb question, but I didn't want to assume. And I'm like, that's okay, just ask it anyway. I'd much rather you ask it.
y'all, some people with disabilities are willing to open, just like me. So if there's ever any questions that you have, contact me because I will explain so you understand probably what I'm talking about and what terminology I'm using.
And you're also
Because
happy to
some
contact me too. Sorry to cut you off.
because sometimes I feel that some people might not understand the terminology. And I am more than willingly, and Sam is too, to talk to you. To
Absolutely,
talk
yeah.
to you so you have an understanding. So if you sorry, give me a quick sec. If you associate yourself with another person with cerebral palsy, then you have a general understanding, but also in the same sense of cerebral palsy, it comes in different ways. And I might be getting into that in a future episode. But just because any disability presents itself in a different way, if that happens, you can learn. You can ask questions. And Sam and I uh would love to talk to you so you have more of an understanding about disabilities and why I'm fighting for equal rights for people with any type of disability.
Oh, absolutely. And Lindsay, if we end up getting a lot of questions, we could even do a follow-up episode with for Q&A as a like a Q&A session where we can answer all the questions.
Oh, I have an idea that we could have like a panel episode where we have experts come in
Ooh, that's a great
and
idea.
explain it.
Dr. Marston maybe could be a panel expert.
Yes. I'm sorry we keep going off topic, y'all. That's just how our friendship is.
And that happens, and that's also something that happens with someone with ADHD too. That is a symptom of ADHD. They get distracted easily. So I try to, work on that, try to get myself back on task.
Okay. People are confined to their wheelchair.
Oh no.
Really? Really? Like that's my only comment. Really?
My thing about this, not everything has a wheelchair. And you may have noticed this, Lindsay, that I typically use the term learning difference rather than disability. And the reason for that is when I think of disability, I think of it as in you cannot do something. Like if you're on a wheelchair, it's be probably because you cannot walk. But people that have like ADHD or even cerebral palsy are capable of doing things. And so I think so that's why I use the term learning difference. It's rather than disability because we are still capable. We can still learn. It's just that we tend to learn a little bit differently, and it might just take us a little bit longer. But we can still learn. I mean, hey, we both have bachelor's degrees, so clearly that shows that we are both, we are capable of learning.
Yeah. I always say use whatever term you want to for disability. That's why you hear me say it in almost every single episode. Um, People with disabilities are a one-dimensional group.
What does that
Okay,
mean
I'm
exactly?
saying this word again. Really? We are
What
not
does
a
that mean?
one-dimensional group. There are many types of learning differences or disabilities. So, no, just because we have a disability does not make us a one-dimensional group. That's all I'm gonna say. Go ahead, Sam.
Very well said. Very well said. I did. I mean, I wouldn't say that's true about me. I don't think. Yeah, I actually hadn't heard about that before. I assume you're able to edit it back in.
It's recording now.
Okay, but yeah, I I don't really know where that term one-dimensional group came from. Like, yeah, so I'm gonna have to just say that is not true. I mean, never heard that one before. Not gonna lie.
People with disabilities uh cannot lead a full and productive life.
Not true.
Really? Like, really? I know I'm raising my voice, but guys, I I am in my 20s. I was told that I was not able to go to college and get a 4-year degree. Now, I am from Texas, so you'll understand why I'm saying this restaurant.
Yeehaw.
My parents were told that the best I could do in life was work out Whataburger for minimum wage. But, and you've heard me say this in multiple episodes,
I
for
have, yeah.
6 years after that information was told to my parents, I have graduated with a 4-year degree from a 4-year college.
The
I
accredited
graduated,
college.
one sec. I graduated with a 3.66 GPA. And guys, I graduated magna cum laude, which is a very, like, it means you focused on your studies and you're getting recognized by getting that. But you can live a full and productive life. Don't
Yeah,
ever think that.
exactly. And I also graduated magna cum laude a year after Lindsay. With three, I think my GPA was like 3.6 or 3.7, somewhere up there. And like I've said before, now I am in grad school, working towards my master's in clinical mental health counseling. So yeah, so like, and it's like I've said earlier, don't ever let people tell you you can't do something. If you want to do something, go for it. I believe in you. Lindsay believes in you.
I believe in you too.
So just,
Our families believe in you.
exactly. And surround yourself with people who do respect you, who are going to be supportive of you, and are going to be there for you, because those are the kind of people that, and that will help. And I know from my experience, and Lindsay probably can vouch for this too, that having a good support system definitely helps.
Yes. Yes. Well, guys, the reason Sam and I wanted to talk about myths surrounding with disabilities is because if a person with a disability is listening, we want to show you that you can advocate for yourself and you can defend yourself, although you shouldn't have to. Um, you shouldn't have to. And if you're having to defend yourself, I would like to say, and I know Sam would too, I am so sorry you're having to do that.
Yes, I'm
Because
sorry too for you if you're dealing with that kind of thing.
because having a learning difference, a limitation or a disability, whatever word you use, is not in your control. And if that person is still not believing you, then I invite you to say, well, why don't you listen to the podcast Disability Discrimination Banned starting now? Because
Or invite them to hit us up and ask us any questions too.
because I will start defending you. And then these people will feel stupid for not believing in you in the first place. We also wanted to do this because we want to educate the people that don't deal with this about the myths surrounding any type of disability or whatever word you use. One sec. And my hope is now that everyone is educated and try to end disability discrimination. And I can promise you guys, this podcast will stay around until that day has come. Well, thank you, Sam. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you again for having me, and I hope that you'll in the future that you'll ask me. I'm sure you will, to be part of another episode.
Yeah,
So yes, thank you,
you'll be back. You'll be
and
back
again,
soon.
oh yeah, oh that's true. Yeah, I will. Yeah, yes, I will be back in a future episode with another former guest of Lindsay's.
Well, thank you for listening in, and I will talk to you guys in episode 16. Bye,
Bye, y'all. I
guys.
believe in y'all.
Aw.